On today's episode of Locked On Wild, Zeev Buium will not play today because the game is too important.
Hey, this is Matt Boldy, and you're listening to Locked On Wild.
You're Locked On Wild, your daily podcast on the Minnesota Wild. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's happening, everybody? Welcome into another episode of Locked On Wild, your daily Minnesota Wild podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. We are your team each and every day, and we thank you for making Locked On Wild your first listen each and every day as well. Make sure you subscribe on YouTube and your favorite podcast platform so you don't miss out on any new episodes throughout the week. On today's episode of Locked On Wild, we'll talk about the Minnesota Wilds getting everybody back. Jared Spurgeon is back. Jake Middleton is back. But that unfortunately means that Zeev Buium will not slot into the lineup here tonight. We'll take one final look at the playoff scenarios ahead of tonight's matchup against the Anaheim Ducks as well. My name is Seth Toupal, host of Locked On Wild, credentialed member of the media, and turns out my game tonight a little earlier than planned, so we will have just a regular postcast here this evening after the game. A game in which hopefully the Minnesota Wilds have taken care of their business and don't have to worry about other scenarios to potentially clinch. The Wild will be at full strength tonight for the first time in quite some time. So that is the good. But we also learned today Zeev Buium is not going to be in the lineup tonight because the stakes are too high. And the stakes are too high. You can't afford mistakes. The Wild have to play the perfect game here tonight in order to come away with a win. Yada yada yada. So you mean to tell me that a player who won the national championship last year and was an integral part in Denver getting to the semifinals, getting to the Frozen Four this year, that the stakes are too high? Look, so the Wild burned a year of the ELC to get Zeev Buium to sign here. I want to make that distinction because I think that is one of the first areas that people will go is, well, why the heck did he burn a year of his ELC? Oftentimes that is used as a teaser, a tantalizer to get players to leave college early so that they can get to being a restricted free agent 1 year earlier. Having said that, it would be nice to get said player into the lineup to be able to just see where he stacks up against the rest of the NHL and give him then the full offseason to kind of put his plan together and to just get an idea of where he needs to go in his process, where he needs to go on his progression. But the fact that the Minnesota Wilds had the weekend that they did against the Rangers, the Islanders, the game against the Calgary Flames, any number of other games, the fact that the Wild weren't able to close those out means that they have been put in a situation where they absolutely have to have this game tonight. Honestly, I think my biggest issue with this whole thing is not that Zeev isn't playing. It's one game. It would be nice to get him in. But did Bill Guerin not go on major market radio 2 days ago and say, oh, yeah, he'll be in the lineup. He will absolutely play. Guys like this, players these days, they're built for these moments. So my issue is that we have done this now. This is the second major one this year. The first being the 3 goalie rotation. We're going to carry 3 guys. Bill Guerin's he's got to stop putting stuff out there. He's got to stop putting sound bites out there. Like, if he says we're going to get Zeev up here and we're going to get him worked in, we're going to get him mixed in, no issues. No issues, because this team, for the first time in who knows how long, is fully healthy. I get it. I understand it. But you got to stop saying these specific things that get people's hopes up. How many people going tonight were excited to see Zeev get worked into the lineup? Because Bill Guerin said he is going to play. We're going to carry 3 goalies. Like, just stop putting stuff out there that contradicts what you end up doing. At the beginning of the season, if you say we're going to see plenty of Jesper this year, and just leave it at that, we don't talk about it. What we end up talking about instead is how great the combination of Filip Gustavsson and Marc-Andre Fleury have been, and maybe you get a better season from Jesper to where he's not having to kind of battle through being told, hey, get yourself an apartment. Get yourself an apartment in St. Paul. Congratulations, you made the team. And then partially due to injuries, but partially due to the fact that the 2 goalies in front of him were just so good, there just wasn't a spot. How you say and when you say something matters, makes all the difference. And there just seems to be this tendency to create issues from things that are said. Let's go back to, now this worked out perfectly fine for the Minnesota Wild. Let's go back to the Cam Talbot situation, the standoff at the NHL draft. And Bill Guerin famously said, I don't have to do bleep. If he's going to be part of the Minnesota Wild, and that's all there is to it. And then he was traded the next day. Just lots of different examples of, I'm calling it foot and mouth. Just say we're gonna work Zeev in. We're excited to have him here. We're excited to get him into practice, and we'll see where things go from there. Much different connotation than he's going to play. And we know where everybody stands on that third pairing defensively. And a power play that's still, even against the San Jose Sharks, way too stagnant, way too passive, way too perimeter centric. It would be one thing to be talking about a prospect just from the Iowa ranks, where you're trying to justify getting them into the lineup. But it feels like Zeev can help in a few different spots. Feels like he can help as a more capable power play quarterback. I get not wanting to try to overwhelm him immediately right off the rush, but we have seen countless examples of spots where I think you could throw him in and I think he would do just fine. But we're getting the regular lineup. We're getting the starting lineup here tonight because this is a must-win game for the Minnesota Wild. They have to have it. You can absolutely not afford to either go to overtime and lose or win outright. 1 point is all the Minnesota Wild need here tonight. We are going to take a look at the playoff scenarios, what the Wild need tonight, what the Flames need, what the Blues need. We'll lay it all out there on the line for you. So going into tonight's game, you know exactly what's at stake and what will happen depending on particular instances. So we will discuss the playoff scenarios as we continue today's episode of Locked on Wild after this. Today's episode of Locked On Wild is brought to you by Wonderful Pistachios. Are you looking for a snack that's both delicious and nutritious? Crack into a good source of protein with Wonderful Pistachios. Wonderful Pistachios is one of the highest protein nuts. Each 1 ounce serving has 6 grams of protein, giving you over 10% of your daily value. Plus, they are packed with fiber and better for you unsaturated fats to help keep you feeling fuller longer. The honey roasted no shells is a staple in my apartment for any sort of sports viewing. I had a bag with me at all times during the Masters this past weekend. Anytime I needed just a handful of some sort of a snack, Wonderful Pistachios was my go-to. And it's that easy. You don't have to crack them open. They're already out of the shell. And so you can just snack the moment you feel a little craving coming on. So get snacking and get cracking with the snack that packs a protein punch. Visit wonderfulpistachios.com to learn more. Welcome back to today's episode of Locked On Wild. Once again, we thank you for making Locked On Wild your first listen each and every day. Again, postcast tonight. And coming up for you tomorrow night at 8 p.m., we will have our latest live show with Denny. Denny was not feeling the best on Sunday, so we made the decision to hold off till tomorrow night, 8 p.m. So we'll know at that point if the Wilds are in or if they are going to have to wait till Thursday and hope that the Calgary Flames don't beat a team that's resting all of its players. So tune in tomorrow at 8 p.m. Should be a great show, as it always is, one of the highlights of the week. Let's talk about these playoff scenarios, because there are a few things going on, but it is interesting that I feel like the Minnesota Wild have by far the easiest path. So as it sits right now, the Minnesota Wild have 95 points. They simply need to either get the game to overtime or win outright. 1 or 2 points is all they need, because the St. Louis Blues have 1 game left. They have 94 points. So the maximum amount of points that they can get is 96. So they could, if the Wild lose this game in regulation tonight against the Ducks, St. Louis wins, they could leapfrog into they could leapfrog in the wild card standings. The Calgary Flames have 2 games left. They're currently sitting at 92 points. If they win outright, if the Minnesota Wilds pick up a point tonight, if the St. Louis Blues win, and if the Calgary Flames win out, and everybody gets to 96 points, the Minnesota Wild are still the number 1 wild card, because the first tiebreaker is regulation wins. Minnesota Wild have 33. St. Louis would have 32 if they win. Minnesota Wild would have 34 if they win, and Calgary would have 32 if they win. So if the Wild get 1 point tonight, they get the number 1 wild card spot. They got the tiebreakers. The only way that the Wild get in trouble tonight is if they lose outright. St. Louis wins, Calgary wins, and then it all comes down to that Thursday game. And again, because of the head-to-head tiebreaker, if that scenario were to happen and the Flames go to overtime on Thursday and lose, Wild are in. So the Wild have a couple of different contingencies for how this plays out over the next couple of days, which is great because they had the win and in on Friday against the Flames, and that did not go well at all. And we'll talk about the Anaheim Ducks here in a second, but it is pretty simple for the Wild to just take care of business, just win this one in regulation, win it outright. Hey, if you want to play overtime hockey because you're not going to have to play again until like Saturday, fine by me. I don't care. Just take care for once. take care of business on your end. And then we don't have to worry about it. We don't have to worry about sweating out, because both the Vegas Golden Knights and the Los Angeles Kings have locked in their spots. They have 0 to play for the rest of the season. Vegas has already come out and said that they are resting key pieces of their lineup. They will not be putting them on the ice whatsoever. So Calgary has a very winnable game against the Vegas Golden Knights. And the Los Angeles Kings, having clinched an opportunity to get the 2 seed over the Edmonton Oilers, they're going to do the same thing. So Calgary has very winnable games over these final 2. The Thursday game being a makeup game from earlier in the season. Very winnable games coming up. I feel like the team that is in the most trouble is St. Louis, oddly enough. Having now lost, after winning 11 in a row, they now have lost 3 straight, and they've got to play a Utah Hockey Club that at this point in the season, playing some pretty darn good hockey. They have won 6 out of 8. And they have been putting some goals on the board. 5-2 win over Chicago. 3-1 win over Calgary. 4-1 win over the Jets. 7-1 win over the Kraken. 5-3 win over the Stars. Dallas has lost 6 in a row, by the way. Yikes. And a 7-3 win over the Nashville Predators last night. So it is in St. Louis, so it's a travel game for Utah. And Utah is 20-20 on the road. Actually have a better road record than they do at home. But I feel like St. Louis is the team that is in the most trouble, sandwiched right in the middle here. Calgary, it's going to take an epic collapse for them to not pick up the final 4 points. So St. Louis has to win that game against Utah outright. They can't slip. If they lose in overtime, if they lose in a shootout, they're out. Even if Calgary wins out, they get to 96. The Wild lose in regulation. They stay at 95. St. Louis loses in overtime, they're out. So if I'm St. Louis, I'm tenuous in tonight's game. You got to just take care of business. And if you fall behind, yikes. Now, first wild card, second wild card, what's the difference? Do you want to play Winnipeg? Do you want to play Vegas? We'll save most of this for later in the week. Probably coming up on Thursday, depending on how things go tonight. Honestly, between the two, there's no appealing matchup either way. Both teams incredibly good at home. Winnipeg is 29-7-4 at home. The Golden Knights are 29-9-3 at home. The Wild have struggled against both pretty significantly this year. For me, I guess the thing that is problematic for me is just how big Vegas is defensively. They do not have a defenseman on the roster that is below 6'2". And I know if you say Winnipeg, you're throwing yourself in contention to play against Connor Hellebuck, and we all know what he can do. But I don't want any part of the Vegas Golden Knights. But this is this is exactly what the postseason is if you're going to do anything, you got to take down some pretty imposing teams if you're going to make any sort of noise in the postseason. it doesn't matter if it's in round one. We've seen the Wild put together really, really good seasons the last couple of years. Get matched up against St. Louis and then Dallas. And if you aren't on your A game, if you have little areas that are easily exploitable, other teams can have a field day with it. So as far as keeping wild card 1, falling to wild card 2, to me it doesn't make too much of a difference. It depends entirely on what the team brings to the table. If they're on their game, they can do a pretty good job of limiting chances for opponents. But if they're flat, get the women and children out of the first 2 rows all around the ice and take cover, because it gets ugly pretty quick. So we'll see what happens. Again, I feel like St. Louis is the team that is on the thinnest of ice right now, strangely. Who do you think is the team that is under most concern? Let us know in the comments ahead of tonight's game, and we'll see what everybody's consensus is for this matchup. The Minnesota Wild taking on the Anaheim Ducks tonight. Ducks have nothing to play for. The Wild have a lot to play for. So we'll discuss just what could happen in this game and what to look for from the Anaheim side of the ice. That's all on the way as we continue today's episode of Locked On Wild after this. Today's episode of Locked On Wild is brought to you by Upwork. Scaling your business requires the right expertise at the right time. With Upwork, you can find specialized freelancers in marketing, development, design, and more. Experts ready to help you take your business to the next level. Upwork gives business flexibility by connecting them with top freelance talent across multiple industries, including IT, AI, web development, and marketing. Whether you need extra hands for a project or a long-term partner, Upwork makes hiring simple and affordable. For instance, if you need help with a marketing campaign, Upwork can connect you with a freelance expert who delivers incredible results. And posting a job is free and simple. And within a day, multiple qualified candidates are right there for you to choose from. So visit Upwork.com right now and post your job for free. That's UPWORK.com, Upwork.com, to connect with top talent and grow your business today. Welcome back to today's episode of Locked On Wild. Once again, we thank you for making Locked On Wild your first listen each and every day. We are your team each and every day as well. And we will have a postcast for you coming up after the game tonight, talking through whatever ends up happening. If we clinch, if we leave it all in the hands of the Calgary Flames on Thursday, we'll talk about all the particulars and start to look ahead to the first round matchup for the Wild. Also, a reminder, we've got our latest live show coming up for you tomorrow night with Denny at 8 p.m. We'll talk through the last few games of the season, get you a look at the playoffs. A lot of great stuff coming up for you tomorrow night at 8, so make sure to join us then. The Anaheim Ducks coming into the XL Energy Center for the final game of the regular season. And it's an Anaheim team, if you look at the surface, 35, 37, and 8, 78 points, but they vaulted ahead of Seattle and San Jose in the standings. And it's an Anaheim team. Their goal differential is minus 40. So there's not a lot that jumps off the table. But there is one particular area in which the Ducks, I think it's safe to say, they've found a little something. A goalie by the name of Lucas Dostal, who his overall numbers, 23, 23, and 6, a 3.11 goals against average, a 902 save percentage, may not jump off the page at you. But for Dostal, he has been he has been a consistent goalie for the Anaheim Ducks here throughout the course of the season. He's played a lot of games as a youngster. And so I ask kind of the same question as I did with Dustin Wolf. Obviously that didn't go great for the Flames because Wolf was fantastic in that game. But it kind of looks, if you look at the numbers in March and April, they just have not been as sharp as Dostal was through the first part of the season. In fact, if we look at Dostal's numbers from his first start of the season in October to the end of February, pretty darn good. He was not a huge factor in the wins department. I mean, he was 24th in the league in wins, as you'd expect from an Anaheim team, but a 2.90 goals against average, a .910 save percentage in the first 36 games of the season. If you look at what he's done in the last couple of months, it's been not great. 4-6-1 in March, a 3.39 goals against average and an .890 save percentage. And so far in April, 2-3, a 3.89 goals against average and an .872 save percentage. He gave up 6 goals on 26 shots against the Vancouver Canucks back on April 5th. Gave up 6 goals to the Los Angeles Kings on 29 shots faced. So it's not as though teams are peppering him. They're able to just beat him over these last few starts, and especially in the month of March. More than three or more goals in 7 of his 10 starts, 3 or more goals. And so far in the month of April in 5 starts, he has given up 3 or more in 4 of them. So it seems like it might be hitting the wall time for Lucas Dostal as the season winds to a close, which hopefully is good news for the Minnesota Wild here tonight. The Anaheim Ducks, since the calendar flipped to 2025, have actually been have collected 1 fewer point than the Minnesota Wild. 20-4 in 2025. 2.84 goals per game, 3.32 goals allowed. Power play has been abysmal. 11.3%, 72.8% on the kill. Minnesota Wild in that span, 21-19-3, 45 points. So both teams have been just floating basically over the last couple of months. Now, month of March to right now, the Ducks are 9-12-1. The power play is even worse, 9.7%. Penalty kill is just under 72. They're scoring 3 goals per game, giving up 3.68. So teams starting to really crack that goaltending that was such a strength for the Ducks at the beginning of the season, and now it is kind of come back to bite them a little bit. As far as the players to keep an eye on in this game, Mason McTavish having a very good season for the Ducks. He has 17 goals since the calendar flipped to 2025. All told, he has 22 goals, 51 points, whether it be Troy Terry, whether it be Mason McTavish, Frank Vetrano, Leo Carlson, Cutter Gauthier, all players that possess 20-plus goals this season. It's a Ducks team that certainly has some skill to them. The interesting thing is just, are we going to get a repeat of what happened against Vancouver, where you're generating looks, but you have kind of played yourself into, well, the goalie's hot. What are we supposed to do now? there has been a little tendency for this team to play with their food throughout the course of the season. And this Anaheim Ducks team, this is a team that the Wild should be able to beat without too many problems. Fully healthy now. Kirill, Kaprizov back. So you've got your offense, back and starting to kind of get under control. But if we look at the regular season series, 5-1 and 5-2, pretty succinct wins. It would be nice to see one of those types of games here tonight. I just don't want there to really be any sort of a sweat to this situation, because if you pull yourself out of we control our destiny and all of a sudden have to wait for the fate of the world, Calgary, you can't control what happens after that. So let's just get a nice win and in, overtime and in, win and in, and a few days off to gear up for the first round of the playoffs after that. Will we get that tonight? I guess we'll just have to wait and see. But thank you, everybody, for tuning in to today's episode of Locked On Wild. Once again, we thank you for making Locked On Wild your first listen each and every day. We will have a postcast for you coming up tonight. And we'll also have a live show coming up for you tomorrow at 8 p.m. So make sure to join us then. Make sure to like and subscribe so you don't miss out on any new episodes throughout the week. We've got them for you every Monday through Friday as part of the Locked On Podcast Network.